and welcome to the Big Marketing Show. And thank you for joining us today from at least 17 countries around the world. We've got people up in Alaska and Canada, down in the Caribbean, South Africa, the UK, Europe, Asia, and of course here in Sydney, Australia, and also our friends in New Zealand. So why are we here? Well, I was looking for something to do with the industry beyond some of the brilliant podcasts that we have going around the world. And when I saw what Synergy Effect had done with this amazing solution, I thought, there's an idea. Let's do a live TV show. What could go wrong on live television, doing it online? So here we are today, and thank you for joining us. We're going to push the boundaries a little. We're going to try some things. We're going to put some things up on screen and sync with us as we talk. Have a bit of fun. It's certainly not going to be an overly serious conversation, even though the subject matter is very serious. You do have to tune your ear, though, to the Australian accent. I'll do my best to speak in a way that you can understand me, and not too quickly, I hope. And when Bob speaks, you'll have to tune into a Californian accent. I will be keeping my cap on for those who have asked. There's been a couple of questions already. The reason is if I took it off, the flaring off my Chrome dome would make it difficult for you to see the screen. So anyway, we're coming to you live here from the Big Marketing Show virtual stage in Sydney. You'll be watching on a screen like this one, and on that interface there is a opportunity for you to ask questions. So you'll just see there's a little tab there that has Q&A. You can type your question in. You then hit submit, and the questions come through to a question wrangler who's in my ear, and they will feed the questions to me, and I will do my best to get through as many of those as we can towards the end of the show. We'll just see how that goes. I'm sure the subject matter here is going to have more questions than we can deal with in the time available, but let's see how it is. Now, rather than me go into a whole plethora of all the platitudes about Bob, I'll let the marketing industry fill you in a little bit on why we've got him here as our first guest in this inaugural show. So on the screen, you're going to see some of what we're talking about, but Media Post said, if you don't know who Bob Hoffman is, then you really don't work in advertising. That, or you've not steeped yourself in the wisdom of this man. Fuel Line said of Bob, he's the most provocative man in advertising, and I agree, and that's why we like him so much, because he's willing to speak the truth. Professor Byron Sharp in Adelaide here in Australia, and you've probably got a thumbed copy of How Brands Grow, said, Bob is the little child who points out the emperor is wearing no clothes. I'm jealous. I wish I'd been brave enough to be this rude. Well, of course, Byron can't. He's a public servant in the university. He has to be politically correct. Unlike Mark Ritson, who calls him one of our truly great marketing iconoclasts. So I've read much of what Bob's written. I've never folded in my inbox for his newsletters, and I'm pleased to welcome Bob today to the first show of the Big Marketing Show. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Malcolm. I don't want to be a prick, but I think you forgot to mention my Nobel Prize and my Olympic gold medal in the introduction.
I was going to leave those for later. That's it, sitting on the shelf behind you. I think I can see it there. But so, despite our youthful good looks, you and I have been around the marketing sun a few laps, and been in the industry a few decades. The headlines in our industry, though, have never been as bad as they have since the arrival of digital marketing. And before the internet, you never saw major publishers or TV networks or that being sued billions of dollars for ripping off advertisers or the public or breach of privacy. Yet it seems to be very much a common practice this century. And it's reflecting terribly on the marketing industry, but no one seems to care. It just seems to be a cost of business. Can you recall a time where we've seen any worse publicity about the industry than we do now?
No, in my lifetime and in my career in advertising, there's never been as much bad stuff going on and bad stuff written about us as there has been in the last few years. And sadly, I think we deserve it. We have been irresponsible, and we have not been as thoughtful and careful in what we do as we should be.
Yes, there's an old saying, you are what you walk past. And I think what we've accepted hasn't necessarily been as ethical as it could. I teach casually at university, and convincing students that it's a great career to be in. A number of my students start their first job. The entry level these days is social media marketing, and one of them only lasted a month because her role was to work in a online fashion house where she was paid to do 60 to 100 fake reviews under fake names a day to promote the fashion house, and the owners couldn't see that there was an ethical issue with that. That was just seen as how you scam the algorithm.
Sadly, a lot of things that we think of as absent of integrity have become regularized, normalized in our business. And it's very disappointing. It doesn't have to be this way. And I think we need to take a step back, take a look at what we're doing, and figure out how to do it better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And today we're going to discuss the biggest elephant in the room, and obviously one of your favourite subjects, which is the issues around programmatic advertising. And there's a number on the screen there, which is $140 billion. And it's estimated that this year, 2024, $140 billion will be lost to programmatic ad fraud, roughly a quarter of the global spend of $600 billion. I mean, given you've labelled the programmatic industry Disneyland for crooks, I suspect you've got some thoughts on the subject.
Yes, I do. There are two big issues. First, as you mentioned, is fraud. The key here is that nobody knows for sure how much is lost to fraud. There are estimates like you put up of 140 billion, but the art of fraud is deception, and only the incompetent fraudsters get caught. We don't know what the competent fraudsters are capable of. And the second issue is waste. There's a tremendous amount of money that's being wasted by online advertisers that's unrelated to fraud. There was a time not that long ago when many people believed in a kind of digital utopia. And among the fantasies was the idea that among marketing people, that online advertising would provide us with almost perfect information about the efficacy of what we were doing. We would know exactly who we were reaching, what it cost us, and how the ad performed. And sadly, the real world has intruded on our fantasy world. In fact, there's never been a time when there's been more confusion and more corruption and more misinformation about advertising. There's never been a time when advertisers chased rainbows and believed charlatans and were taken to the cleaners by con men as they are now. And most of it is centered on programmatic advertising, the very thing that was supposed to set us free.
Okay, well, it's as I said, folks, Bob doesn't hold back, and I appreciate it. What we're going to do today is your latest ebook, which is The Black Box, How Marketers Waste Billions on Advertising, and I urge everyone here to download it and read it if they haven't already. I have a couple of times. You've gone to some extraordinary lengths to research the industry, and so what we're going to do for the audience's sake is we're going to put up some of the quotes from the book that have come from research and industry associations, and Bob will have a comment on some or all of those as we go through it. So our first one is actually a study by the ISBA and PwC, which said half of programmatic money is being siphoned off by ad tech middlemen before it pays for a single ad. And according to Juniper Research, sorry, Bob.
Yeah, and the rationale for this is that programmatic buying is so efficient that handing 50% of your money over to the system before you buy any ads is a good deal. It's like giving a stockbroker half your money for the wisdom of his investment advice. Only an idiot would do something like that, but apparently we're idiots because we're willing to do it.
Yeah, and we didn't need to do that when we were booking media before programmatic, did we?
No, we didn't.
No, okay. All right. Juniper Research had some interesting stuff. They said ad fraud alone in 2023 it cost the industry $84 billion, and they reported that 22% of all digital advertising spend was stolen by fraud. And the previous report actually didn't include ad fraud in its calculation; it was just programmatic. So it's a big problem.
Yeah, it's two big problems: the waste and the fraud. Yes.
Okay. Well, the ANA said about 50% of programmatic ad dollars are eaten by MFAs. For those who aren't aware, a made-for-advertising website, these things are growing and growing where humans never see them. They're only seen by bots, and they're designed to make revenue from advertisers. They said ads from an average programmatic campaign by what they called sophisticated advertiser will appear on over 40,000 websites, which makes it accurate monitoring of it completely impossible. I mean, how can you do forensic analysis on 40,000 websites?
Yeah, and the point here is that when you buy programmatically, you have no idea where your advertising is going to run. And even after it's run, you have no idea where it ran and if it actually ran at all.
Yeah, exactly. And even if where it ran was of any sort of quality or any human even saw the site, that's the real issue, is that you just, not only do you not know where it's going, you don't know whether it's even been seen. In that report that ISPA did, they said 80% of websites that programmatically purchased ads, they're run on non-premium websites, which, as you said, is a very British way of saying crap websites.
Yeah, most of the websites in the world are crap. And when you buy programmatically, you're just throwing your money in the air and hoping it lands someplace good. And there are you can do blacklists and whitelists and stuff like that. But if you're buying the way most people buy programmatic advertising, yeah, you're at the mercy of the system. And like Isba said, 80% of the websites that get programmatic advertising are essentially crappy websites.
Yeah, and that's, to your point, the ANA said that 70% of advertising dollars spent in the US, for example, on online programmatic never touch a human being. So humans aren't even seeing where the ads are going. They're just being seen by bots or by nobody.
Yeah, or the money is being disappearing in the programmatic apparatus.
Yeah. And 30 to 50% of display ads aren't even viewable. This is a whole other issue, is that non-viewable means the ads load outside the screen, the viewable area of the screen, or it doesn't render in time for the viewer to see it, or multiple ads are stacked, sometimes up to 200 per site, per ad space, or one of several other factors. So you have that issue as well.
Yeah.
And then Lumen Research, as you said, they reported only 9% of online ads get even 1 second of consumer attention.
Yeah, the startling thing about that is the ad industry defines a view if half of the ad's pixels are loaded and looked at for 1 second. The ad industry considers this a view. And even with this absurd definition, only 9% of display ads are viewed.
Yeah, frightening that we would accept that. That's the thing that's always irked me, is we find that as an acceptable viewing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't on TV advertising, for example.
Nope.
So as the ANA said, and it was a bit bleeding obvious, the programmatic media ecosystem is riddled with material issues, including thin transparency, fractured accountability, and mind-numbing complexity. And the CEO, as I said, stated the bleeding obvious. We believe this lack of transparency is costing advertisers billions of dollars in waste.
No question
that is
about
the bleeding obvious. There is no question. So in your book, you've got some graphics. So we're just going to go through some of those graphics to explain to some of the people what the issues are. The standard way that programmatic buys is that an advertiser uses a demand-side platform to place ads. An auction takes place in a microsecond, and the ad gets placed through the supply-side platform into what's supposed to be a relevant website. That's the common sense expectation, isn't it?
This is the idealistic view of how it works, yes.
Yeah, but it's not that simple, because the whole ad tech industry itself has completely eaten the media world, and this is what it looks like. This is the Lumascape that shows you how many middle people, what's the right word these days, are taking money along the way between the advertiser and the publisher.
Yeah, by any measure, this is an insanely complicated and opaque system. I think it was a British media guy, Erwin Gottlieb, who said, quote, "In complexity, there is margin." In other words, at each step of the process, someone is taking a piece of your ad dollar. And the result is that nobody knows what they're buying, who they're buying it from, what they're paying, and where the advertising is running.
And yet they're still happy to spend money. It's frightening. And I think you've, which is one of my favourite diagrams, you've explained this beautifully in what we call the programmatic poop funnel, or what you call the programmatic poop funnel. Can you please take us through that? We'll just bring it up on the screen now.
Yeah. A few years ago, I tried to quantify exactly how much value an advertiser got from a programmatic ad dollar. Now, I'm by no means a statistician, but using some, dumbass blog math, I came up with the programmatic poop funnel. probably not 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. So as I'm sure you know, no one in the comical online metrics business can agree on anything. So I've taken the numbers in this funnel from the most reliable sources I could find. ISBA, Integral Ad Science, Ad Age Magazine, and Lumen Research. Okay, so first in the funnel, we start with $1 to spend. Okay, our agency takes on average about a 7-cent fee. This leaves us 93 cents. Technology and targeting takes another 27 cents. These are the DSPs, the SSPs, and the rest of the gang of middlemen that you saw in that Lumascape diagram. So now we have 66 cents left. 15 cents mysteriously disappears into what was known as the unknown delta. No one knows where or what the unknown delta is. All we know is that 15 cents disappears. I think the ISBA has updated this recently, and they have some idea of where that money is going. Okay, so now the programmatic apparatus has taken half our money, and we still haven't bought an ad yet. Now we can actually begin to buy ads. We have 50 cents left. Between 30 and 50% of the ads we buy will not be viewable. And I've used the lower number, I've used 30%. So now we have 36 cents left. About 20% of the stuff that we buy with that 36 cents will be fraudulent. So now we have 29 cents worth of real viewable ads. But according to researchers, only 9% of the display ads that run will actually be viewed by a real person. So, dumbass blog math notwithstanding, it looks like our dollar bought us about 3 cents worth of real display ads viewed by real human people.
It is frightening that you can simplify it so easily and make it so plainly obvious, yet nothing is being done about it. Why do you think that this is continuing?
Well, it's obvious why the media industry doesn't want to fix this. Everyone in the media industry in ad tech is making money. And some of the media platforms engaged in ad tech are among the most profitable companies in the history of the world. Now, why the marketing industry doesn't fix this is the real question. And they are the ones who are getting screwed. But there are perverse incentives at work. It's best for a brand to spend its money wisely and effectively, but it's not necessarily so for a marketer. Remember, the average lifespan of a CMO is somewhere around 24 months. The marketer's first priority is to keep his or her job. Now, the programmatic garbage may stink, but it's very cheap, and the metrics that are generated by the garbage sites and the garbage buys and the garbage reports provide marketers with fabulous nonsense that they can wave in front of their overlords. Look how many people we reached. Look how many clicks we got. Look how low our CPMs are. It's mainly nonsense, but it looks really good to people who don't know. So consequently, there's a tremendous demand for junk metrics among marketers, and the programmatic ecosystem is happy to supply them with the junk metrics. There are two kinds of marketing incompetence here. First, there are the people who don't know what's going on. These are the naive souls who have no curiosity, who believe everything the media companies and agencies tell them, and who are too lazy or too careless to do their homework. And second are the people who know what's going on, but are afraid to do anything about it. Imagine yourself suddenly cutting out all the garbage and explaining to your boss why your vanity metrics, the clicks and the reach and the CPMs that looked so great, suddenly go to hell. How do you explain that you've now seen the light and are buying properly, but for years you've been pissing away money on junk? How do you do that? I don't know. And that's why a lot of this continues.
Well, it's interesting you say that because there's an acronym that's come into play in the last 12 months called FOFO, and we all love our acronyms. And it's the fear of finding out.
Yeah.
And I saw some wonderful research from the Video Advertising Bureau. And I call this the insurance mentality. In other words, it won't happen to me, so I'll ignore it. Marketers just don't want to deal with the problem. and they're concerned about finding the truth. They actually don't want to know what the truth is, and to your point, it damages their credibility. It's something that they don't want to put on the table, because then they're going to be asked questions about why. And as they don't have the answers, it risks their career and risks their jobs and reputations. So what you're seeing from this research is this fear of finding out is becoming bigger and bigger, which is why heads are in the sand, and we're not trying to solve the problem from any direction, be it the media buyers, be it the publishers, be it the marketers themselves. So even worse in this research, what we saw was that the percentage of consumers that are concerned about online fraud is higher than the percentage of marketers. So consumers aren't dills; they know what's going on. They hate being chased around the web. You buy something, and for 6 weeks after you buy it, they're still chasing you to buy it again because their systems aren't connected. So you've got this issue where transparency is key, and it has to be a priority, but it's not. Why? Is it just the career risk, or what is it?
It's up to the marketers, The first thing the marketers have to do is acknowledge that the problem exists. And up until now, they haven't been willing to do that. Then they have to be honest with their peers and with the industry, which they also have not been willing to do. The executive vice president of the ANA had this to say, that, quote, "Everyone says they are supporters of transparency until they are the ones who are asked to be transparent," unquote. And sadly, that's where we stand right now.
Yeah. And unless the marketers do something, then nothing's going to happen. We're just going to keep with FOFO. And the audience may have some opinions on it. If you want any questions around that, I do have one that's just come here, and it says, "Isn't the principle of brand advertising based on regularly repeating the message within the medium? How can your ads work if they're spread across thousands of low-grade websites and they only appear once for a fraction of a second?"
Very important point, a very important point. We have gotten away from the principles of brand building, and we have become direct response marketers who only are interested in how many clicks we can accumulate. And there's plenty of research that tells us that over the long term, the best way to do things is not the way we're doing them now. But like I said, marketers first, you're a CMO, you're first, on your top 10 things you want to do, the first 9 are keep your job. And sadly, keeping your job these days involves showing metrics to your bosses, to your CEO, to your CFO, and to your board that indicate that what you're doing is effective. The fact that the metrics are totally unreliable is not well known throughout the industry. And consequently, people are doing what they have to do to maintain their positions. And part of that is believing in garbage metrics and using them as justification for what they're doing.
Yeah, because the way the people buy or measure their advertising, there's another, as you would know, there's another acronym, ROAS, Return on Advertising Spend. Well, unfortunately, if you're going to talk about ROAS and it's only the advertising spend, you spend $1, what did I get back? You can't talk about ROAS if you're a brand marketer, because your spend has to invest, there has to be a part of the spend that goes towards the brand, part of the spend that goes towards the acquisition of the customer. And if you're just measuring, did I get money back from did I get more money back from what I spent in the first place, then I'm a success, then all you're selling is a commodity, you're not selling a brand. And the other thing is, if you're buying on a cost per click rather than impressions, what you're not doing and what we're not seeing is pre-campaign research and post-campaign research. So you don't know if that very low conversion rate that you need to cover the cost of your ad has actually pissed off a whole bunch of people who didn't respond, because you've never done any post-test research or any pre-test research. So you actually don't know the damage you could be doing to your brand through your poor advertising. All you need is 3 people to buy and you've covered the cost of the ad.
And the way you build a brand is not one person at a time, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a long-term investment. And the difference is what I call public advertising versus private advertising. Big brands, big successful brands are built in public with big public advertising. What we are doing now with 40,000 websites running our little, display ad is private advertising. But we've come to believe that one-to-one personalized advertising is the way to advertise. I don't believe that. I believe the most important thing that advertising does for a brand is make it famous. And you don't become famous in private. You don't become famous one person at a time. You become famous in public with big public ideas and big public noise. And that's why God gave us advertising, so we could reach a lot of people in a big way and become famous. And that's in my opinion anyway, the best way to build a brand.
And one of the ways it can enhance that these days is sharing through social. So when you do have something famous and a big idea working, you do see it shared across the digital network, which is one of the strengths of it. Two of the experts who supply you with reference material, Dr. Augustine Fu of Fu Analytics and Christoph Franizek, who's the principal of Analytics. You've actually got a fascinating story about Christoph and USA Today. Can you just take us through that? We'll put a couple of images on the screen as you talk.
Sure. A couple of years ago, the Wall Street Journal reported on a story regarding a popular news site in the US called USA Today. Now, researchers at a company called Analytics stumbled upon an error. They discovered that Gannett Publishing had unintentionally been publishing online ads in the wrong places. Gannett owns USA Today. They also own hundreds of tiny community news sites. For 9 months, Gannett had been conducting billions of ad auctions for space on the USA Today site, but had inadvertently been sending the bid-winning ads to their other tiny websites by mistake. In other words, for 9 months, advertisers like Nike and Adidas and Ford and Starbucks and Kia and Marriott had been paying for and thinking their ads ran on the USA Today site. But actually, they may have run on the websites of the Ruidoso News, a biweekly newspaper in New Mexico, or the Lebanon Daily News in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. And the question is, how can all these ads have run in the wrong places without a single brand noticing that their ads weren't where they were supposed to be, a single agency knowing what they were buying, a single fraud detection company or media verification firm unearthing the fact that all these ads ran in the wrong places? For 9 months, we can only assume that these so-called sophisticated advertisers were receiving fictitious reports about the nature of their programmatic buy. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, at least 15 different leading ad tech companies that were part of the chain of buying and selling and verification for Gannett had enough information to see what was going on, and not a single one of these companies discovered or reported it. Now, if these leading ad tech companies and agencies and marketing professionals don't have the competence to discover huge mistakes from a company who was not trying to deceive them, what level of confidence can we have in their ability to identify the work of fraudsters who are trying to deceive them? I think I know what the answer is. The answer is none.
Yeah, it is frightening. What you're saying is that the better marketing career is to work as a fraudster because you'll make more money and sleep better at night.
And according to Hewlett Packard Industries, of all types of crime done online, being a fraudster is the easiest. It has the lowest barrier to entry and the highest potential for return. Sadly, very bad combination.
Yeah, and we're not doing anything to protect against it. It boggles the mind sometimes. Okay, well, I've got a couple of questions coming through, which I'll share. One from Washington says, is it too little too late for the industry and they will never solve it? Do you think there is a chance to solve it, or have we passed the point of no return?
There is a chance to solve it, but I am highly skeptical that we have the guts to do it or the integrity to do it. That's the really bad part, is the integrity part.
No one
Too
wants to
many,
put their hand
too
up
many
and take
people
ownership.
making too much money. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, well, here's another one that says, could we create a law or a rule as to what type of website can be added to the programmatic network? A way to regulate the quality before they're allowed to receive ads? Or is it all too difficult?
No, that could be done by the ad networks themselves. You would hope that they would, before allowing a website to be listed with them, they would do due diligence to make sure it's a legitimate website with worthy value to their clients. But they don't do that.
Yeah, well, this next question I'm going to give you, it's interesting because marketers have a history of abusing customers. So if you go back to the 80s, which was a long time before some of the audience here, there was a do not mail register because people were getting mailed by so much what they term junk mail. So registers were come where you could stop to receive advertising mail, and it was legislated. Then, not long after that, we started abusing them in the homes with telemarketing. So there was a do not call register to stop telemarketers calling you in the home. And then, of course, as soon as email was invented, we created the Spam Act because it was abused by marketers. So we've abused them through mail, we've abused them on the phone, now we've abused them through email, and now we're abusing them with personalisation that's irrelevant in most cases. So this question was, given that we've created those laws before, is there a way of creating some law to protect against programmatic fraud, do you think?
There probably are laws against programmatic fraud, but they are not being enforced. And laws without enforcement, you might as well not have any laws at all. The problem is a lot of the fraud is transnational. And a law in one country is not the same as a law in another country. Does the government of Australia have the right to find companies in North Korea who are committing fraud, or in Iran?
We're going through that at the moment. We're trying to get some certain videos taken down off Twitter, and they're actually having a lawsuit with Auld at the moment because he's arguing freedom of the press and they're arguing it's inappropriate. So to your point, that's right. How do we try to legalise it? And
do the North Koreans care that, or the Russians care that people in their country are committing fraud on you and on me? I don't think they care that much.
No. You may have answered this one, but it says, how come you're the only person with the guts to call out this lunacy? Why don't marketers and media agencies have a spine?
I'm not the only person. There are plenty of people who understand what this is. I just have a big mouth. And, the research on this stuff is being done by really smart people who really deserve the credit for digging this stuff out. I'm just a loudmouth, blog weasel who my job is, I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not a software engineer. I don't know any of that stuff. I just take what these smart people are doing and the hard work they're doing, and I try to put it into language that knuckleheads like you and me can understand, so that we understand what's actually going on. There are plenty of people who are concerned about this, who want it to end, but there's so much money and so much power in the ad tech industry, and it's so profitable. I mean, there are companies that some of the most profitable companies in the history of the world in the ad tech business. Do you think that they want reform? I don't think they do.
No, not at all. You're right. So, given that one of the key issues here is tracking, here's a question: if you could start fresh and design online media buying, what would you do?
Well, tracking is online advertising's original sin. If we could eliminate tracking, we could eliminate a substantial amount of the problems that we have discussed here so far. Tracking is dangerous for a number of reasons. First, it's dangerous to us as individuals. The worst governments in history have been the ones that have abused the privacy of their citizens by following them everywhere, listening to their private conversations, and compiling secret files on them. Today, it's the marketing industry that's engaged in these practices. The KGB and the Stasi and the Gestapo could only dream of having the depth of information about citizens that Google and Facebook and other ad tech companies have. According to a report by the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, people in the US have their online behavior and location broadcast to thousands of companies and organizations around the world over 200 billion times a day. Google alone sends this data to 4,698 organizations around the world, including Russia and China. There is no control over this data once it is sent. And a report to the British Parliament asserted that by the time an average child in Europe is 13 years old, the ad tech industry has 72 million data points on that child. Now, we would never accept this level of spying on us by governments, but for some reason, we have learned to accept it by marketers. And tracking is a danger to the integrity of democratic institutions. In recent years, we have seen a serious wedge driven into the political life of my country. I don't know about your country, but several other countries. There is a direct link between tracking by the online ad industry and the polarization of democratic societies. A study by a group of Facebook executives in 2018 reported that almost 2/3 of people who joined extremist groups on Facebook were directed there by Facebook's algorithms. And where do these systems get the data that informs their algorithms? They get it from tracking.
Thank you, and thank you for your forthrightness. I am getting a wind-up signal. It looks like we're a little out of time, so what I will do is get back to everybody by email with some answers to those questions. I'll talk to you. I think we could be here all day talking about this, but as I said, I'll share those with the answers to questions later on. Bob, I just want to say thank you for your insight, your intellectual honesty. You know, yes, you're a blog weasel, but the fact is, if you didn't give us this information, we wouldn't know about it. There are a lot of very smart people out there creating the data and proving the point, but you're the one that's the voice, and you're no longer just preaching to an empty church. You've got a lot of people interested, a lot of people asking questions, and I hope that what you've done is help to make some change in the industry. As you can see on the screen, there's some of Bob's books and his website. Go there, buy his books, download the resources. He's got a heap of resources then. So I just want to say thank you so much, Bob. Really appreciate you having here on our first show, and hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's been a pleasure. Good luck to you and to your viewers.
Thank you. And our next show, just a bit of housekeeping, is July 9, and it's two marketers walk into a bar and laugh aloud at marketing. And my guests include Tom Fishburn, aka the Marketunist, and Dr. Ryan Wallman, aka the Dr. Draper, who is a co-author of How Brands Blow and Delusions of Grandeur. So that will be a lot of fun. We're going to come and look at why certain topics get traction, why we're the only industry where people can make money laughing at ourselves, why has marketing become a punchline to jokes about itself. You can contact me via email or via LinkedIn or via the contact sheet on the website. Please give us your feedback. And if there's any potential guests that you'd like to nominate, you can do that on a form on the website where you can nominate people and the sort of subject matter that we want to cover. This is our first one. I know we can only get better by doing it. Look forward to bringing you to our second show where we have a bit of a laugh. Thanks very much wherever you are in the world. I really enjoyed this first show and look forward to seeing you at the next one.